What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a video looking at the latest standalone Prime sniper, VADARYA, that came out with Caliban Prime. For those wondering about Caliban Prime builds, it's the same builds as the regular. Nothing has changed with the Prime. Now, moving on to the weapon stats. It is a charge-based sniper similar to the Lanka, but unlike the Lanka, it is hit scan. It has below average fire rate for a charge weapon, bad reload speed, not the greatest status chance, decently high crit chance, and an okay critical multiplier, and its base damage is pure electric. Performing an alternate fire with the weapon while you're aimed down sights will give you a magnified sniper zoom and have access to sniper combo buildup. Unfortunately, this sight is obnoxious if you're playing in regular missions, and not worth it for the small crit damage increase it provides. Yes, you do have access to the combo count buildup for additional damage, but the combo buildup rate is quite slow and not worth it. And for the other people wondering about taking this weapon into dead content, I'm sorry, I meant Eidolon hunts. It's bad.
Buy Shock Trooper for even more elemental damage. Alright, they're out the back.
Sentient energy spike in your area. I advise you to be careful. Device is insufficient. You are directed to secure and employ additional Eidolon lures.
I'm using the wrong amp. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. Ain't no way. No. This is shit, bro.
Just use a properly built Rubico and you will do way better.
This hits, but Lanka's not good for hunting. Come here.
I advise you to be careful.
Oh, there you are. Ah, shit place.
That device is insufficient.
For a weapon that is primarily electric and is trying to be an elemental damage weapon, it does a horrible job at actually dealing with statuses. Also, fun fact, it is one of the few snipers that can reload while aiming down sights. The main trait of this weapon is that when shooting an enemy, the weapon has a chance to summon 3 lightning bolts from the sky to strike down other enemies. These bolts deal electric damage but no guaranteed procs. They scale with the weapon damage and have a chance to proc electric and your modded elemental damage. Even though the bolts scale with the weapon damage, they don't count as weapon attacks as they don't apply force proc elemental damage buffs, like Toxic Lash or anything like that. And the lightning bolts do not stack up gun arcanes. So if you want to stack up Merciless or Deadhead, they need to be direct weapon kills from the sniper shot itself. And because they're not considered weapon direct hits, the bolts also do not benefit from Galvanize Aptitude. The weapon doesn't have the greatest status chance, so building it for status damage will feel underwhelming. However, there is a buggy interaction with these bolts and force procced Blast status effect.
Okay, there it is. Feels like a letdown. The reason why it's a letdown is because the weapon doesn't force proc other things.
For you to understand this interaction, let's first dissect the Blast status effect. Blast is an AoE explosion status effect that is based on a fuse time buildup. So there are 2 ways to detonate targets. Blast needs to be applied on a target first, and then have that target die to have blast spread to nearby enemies. Or reach 10 stacks of blast to have it immediately detonate and spread blast procs. With this, you can inherently create a chain reaction of blast explosions that re-trigger the lightning bolts, and frames like Site 09 and Lavos can easily do this because Site's resupply and Lavos' Valence Formation Augment are both guaranteed elemental status procs. However, the only thing that can actually spread this is Blast, because it is snapshotting itself as weapon attacks to re-trigger the lightning bolts. And now for the reality check. This is the part where you're not in Simulacrum and mod the weapon appropriately to do damage. Even if you have forced proccing Blast, if you do a lot of damage with one shot bypassing the proc rate and instantly killing a target, you won't be able to spread Blast. Because remember, the target needs to be affected by Blast for Blast to spread. So to have it spread, you kind of have to slightly nerf yourself or go heavier with status chance, which is stupid because of the weapon's design. And without that interaction, the weapon is quite mediocre. So for the funny to actually work, you need to mod your weapon for Blast and even have Force Blast with Site 09 or Valence Formation. And if you want a viable AoE sniper, you have the Spirothrix and Chromarex. Another thing people were talking about is Xata's Whisper. Xata's Bubbles proc rate is based off your weapon status chance, and for Xata to scale really well, you need tons of modifiers, especially elemental damage and constant precision hits, and not worth it for this weapon. However, I did want to make this weapon work without any buggy or convoluted interaction, so I pulled out the best sniper warframe in the game, Kullervo. With his third ability, Collective Curse, it completely removes any drawbacks and clear potential the weapon has. And yes, using a Rubico with this combo is way better, and even a Spirothrix by itself is also better. And with this setup, I don't have to wait for lightning bolts to trigger and rain down from the sky. You literally just shoot out your Collective Curse and hit the first target that is tethered, and you kill everything. And as you can see, it's not a Simulacrum showcase, because you're not always going to have beefy targets just standing clumped up together, just so you can see your fancy lightning falling down from the sky. With this setup, you literally just point, click, and kabloomy everything. So let's break down this Kullervo and VADARYA combo. And here we are with the build. For the Archon Shards, you don't need any of them. However, if you want, you could use Electric Elemental Damage bonus for your primary weapon with a Purple Tauforge. But because this is my melee guy, I have these other Archon Shards. For the Helminth, I'm running Nourish. Come on, it's Roar or Nourish. It's one of those two. Take your pick. Nourish gives you viral elemental damage on all of your weapons and of course the energy multiplier. The main way we're going to be nuking here is with Collective Curse. Simple. You tether enemies and it will spread out your damage. This allows single target weapons to shine insanely well, and especially snipers, because snipers are heavy hitting single target weapons. And for this particular build, you don't even need to aim at heads. You can just body shot and nuke everything in sight. This is perfect for your average Warframe player who's not trying to try hard or sweat anything. So let's take a look at the actual VADARYA build. For the base damage, I do have Primary Merciless. Simple as that. This gives you 365% base damage and the reload speed. That is very important because reload speed on this weapon is not great. This gets rid of the 0.6 seconds on our reload speed. However, we do have additional reload speed from other sources. And here's another thing. Collective Curse and the lightning bolts will not trigger Primary Merciless, only your direct kills. Now that we've established base damage, we're going to go with other multipliers. Our faction damage. If you don't want to run this, you can put whatever else. You can go with Scope, you can go with Amalgam Serration, whatever you want. I'm not going with Equity here because please read what the mod says. You get increase weak point damage and crit chance when you hit the weak points, and you cannot use multi-shots. This means you always have to aim for heads. And you're a Warframe player, don't kid yourself, alright? Multi-shot, crit chance, crit damage. This increases your crit chance all the way to 120%. That's guaranteed crits all the time, and we're multiplying that damage every time with our critical damage increase. Vile Acceleration for the charge time. Seriously, this is a charged weapon. We don't want to be slow. I went with raw damage here, with both elementals here to make corrosive. Yes, even though the weapon already has electricity, I went with even more damage to give it, and bladed rounds for additional critical damage. On kill, you gain 120% critical damage while aiming down sights. And we're not fully aiming down sights, and this is going to be a way better buff than the 50% bonus that you get doing your alternate fire zoom. And now for the Kullervo build. Cross projection, minus 18% armor. Strength, strength, strength. All of this to boost my nourish and overguard. And of course, don't forget even more strength. And here we have Archon Stretch, Equilibrium, and Prime Flow for the large energy pool, and the energy to health conversion with orb pickups. And we get Archon Stretch from our pet. And for the reload speed, we have Arcane Momentum. When you land a critical hit, you have a 60% chance to gain 150% reload speed on snipers only. When you hit enemies, see right there? That reload speed. See how fast that is? And with the Volatile Recompense Augment will allow us to keep our second ability, Recompense, active at all times so we don't have to cast it and lose energy. The only thing we'll be casting is our third ability, and of course Refreshing Nourish. For the companion, we're going to be using the Panzer Volpifiler here. Easily spreads viral for us, debuffing everything in sight, so we deal even more damage with every shot. The setup is simple. Viral Quills, Martyr Symbiosis, Reinforced Bond. Yes, we're using Reinforced Bond on a Kavant. It will give us 60% increased fire rate if our companion has over 1,200 shields. As you can see, 1,295. As you can see, the Reinforced Bond fire rate. And every time we perform a reload, we give our companion shields and overshields, so we can always get this bonus fire rate. And of course, Tenacious Bond for the increase in critical damage, which is going to be way better than the 50% you get when you fully aim down sights. And to give us Archon Stretch, if we actually need it, we do have electricity on our companion's claws. And because we're using Tenacious Bond, we also need to use Bite. And with Bite, we can take our companion's critical chance over 50%. As you can see, we're 107. Now we'll always have that Tenacious Bond buff active. Shocking Claws makes all our companions' elemental damage mainly deal electric. But of course, we do have the Radiation and Magnetic Claws, which are separate. And this, as you can see, we got Archon Stretch active. Very simple. And if our companion crits, we also get Arcane Momentum. As you can see with this combo, it's very simple, not convoluted, without abusing any funny tactics. You literally just press 3 and shoot. Anyway, folks, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. And if you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. To refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.